I'm a night owl. The day's fine, but I like to stay up late. Don't like mornings. My day kind of shifts later into the evening. A lot of members of my family are like that too. And so I've learned over the years to try to schedule things a little bit better to when I'm going to be more mentally active. Each and every one of us has a particular rhythm, particular cycle, alignments with the day night cycle, with the monthly cycle, and even with the annual cycle that we need to learn. One, for the betterment of our own life, but two, so that we, through aligning with those natural cycles, we know when the best time is for us to do certain things. So, while we talked yesterday about the 8 great festivals of the year, today we're going to talk about finding our own personal alignments as we walk together down creations. Hello, everybody. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the Dogda.
And like I said in the intro, we are going to be talking today about finding our personal alignment. That for some of us, and I would actually wager probably for a lot of us, it's going to look a lot like the annual cycle that we talked about on yesterday's episode and that is talked about in chapter 4 of Druidcraft. But we're not here for the average. We're not here for what's normal. We're here to make sure that each and every individual can figure out what works best for them. Now, we've talked about this a little bit here, there, and yonder throughout the podcast. So if you want more information, you can always go back into our earlier episodes and find those. Today, I really want to drill into how we can find our own personal alignments and how we actually tend to work best. So before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. All right, let's just get into it.
This is a further exploration of what we just covered in chapter 4, The Way of Earth and Her Seasons. Whereas in that chapter, they put forth a lot of generalities tied in with the different seasons and the 8 festivals. And here we're getting into what does that mean personally to you and how your rhythms work. And of course, we get to talk about Charlie's one of their favorite topics inside of one of their favorite topics inside of one of their favorite topics. We're nested dolls now. And that is journaling. Dun, dun, dun.
Journaling is very important to any of these magical practices. And I would say any kind of spiritual practice that you're wanting to embark upon, because you need to start looking for patterns and be careful about the patterns that you're looking for. I think this is where we get wrong when we're doing this work. The best way to do this is to try to journal every day. Doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to write paragraphs. You're not writing your life story. You're not writing your memoir. Just take some time, 1 to 4 times a day, to just stop. What is your energy level? What is the moon phase that you're in? What is the date? What is the weather like outside? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it foggy? Just start keeping track little by little of just the details. Just what's going on right now? What's going on right now? This is where confirmation bias can really kick in and really skew our data. Because a lot of people think, well, if we're talking about the 4 quarters of the moon, I'll journal for each of the 4 quarters of the moon and see how I'm feeling then. Well, you might actually resonate for some reason stronger with the gibbous moons than the quarters. Your alignments may be different. You may notice that it's not actually the full moon cycle, but there's something about it being 11th of the month, for example, like it is in our family. There's something about the 11th of the month in our family tends to be special and draw special energies in. We've all noticed it. We've all made note of this over the years. There's something about just the 11th for us. So this is what you're looking for. And like I said, it doesn't have to be elaborate. You don't have to write out great long paragraphs. Just record what's going on. If you think that you are more tied to astrology, you'll notice I never talk about the planets or planetary motions or anything like that. And that's because neither Brian nor I have any resonances with that. It just, I don't really notice if this sign is rising, if this planet is in this house, that none of that really seems to affect me in a noticeable way. And you've mentioned that for yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're about as close to my personal relations and effects as they are to the planet Earth. I tried looking into that. It was just like, there's just nothing there. It's okay. It happens. That's part of this whole process and why journaling is so important and why personal alignments are so important. Because say if I were sold on a bill of goods that all the magic deals with these planetary alignments and all this and all that, the power and the workings of the subtle energies comes out of that. If I believed that that was it, and then I was exposed to it and trained on it and tried to work with it, I would have been like, this is all BS because it had no relevance. It'd be like giving me water and telling me it's soup. It's water. There is nothing there. And
For us.
for us. And that's the thing though, is that it's about the personal alignments because for someone else, if I were to be like, oh, it's all about the lunar alignments and the waxing and waning moon and all this stuff, full moons and new moons, and that has absolutely no resonance with them, but the planetary alignments have lots of resonance for them, then finding that out would be so helpful because they can then go and practice and work with those cycles.
And if that's something you want to know more about, Ivy Corvus has a lot of good resources on connecting to the planets down to like what days they're connected to and even down to the planetary hours because people have really worked this down into like into the very nitty gritty of life. So like if that's something you're interested in, there are resources out there. And it may be something that you haven't checked out that you should. Do you have a stronger connection to astrology than either of us do? The only real strong connection we have is we are living embodiments of our stars. Like the more I learn about Scorpio, and we're both Scorpios, by the way, the more I learn about Scorpio, the more I'm just like, yeah, yeah, wow, that is definitely me. That is
Surprisingly
definitely me.
fits. And it also helped when we were working on personality traits and behaviors because we started seeing these correspondences and this alignment with Scorpio that we were able to watch out for some of the what could become negative traits and be very mindful of it. Like the whole territorialness, like it's strong in both of us, but we were able to be aware so that we can let go. So when we see ourselves suddenly going like, no, I've claimed this space and somebody's in it, and now I'm giving them side eye and getting aggressive, like we know, oh, wait, let it go. Take a deep breath. It's a shared space. I don't need to be having a fit because somebody moved my pencil 2 centimeters to the left and turned it 2 degrees. It's not time for a meltdown.
Now, this may seem like a lot of work for you, especially if you're only into Druidry for the spirituality. And a lot of people are drawn to Druidry and Druidcraft for the spirituality of it and not so much for the magic. And I would say that this is work that you should still be doing. Whether you think you're ever going to cast a spell or do a ritual or a ceremony, this is still really valid work in the ways that Brian and I are very the same but different. We know that the moon affects us in equal and opposite ways. So we know what time of the month I need to be scheduling myself to be more and less active. And for Brian, it's the exact opposite that time of the month.
It does make a stronger household because then we have high active moments throughout the entire month. But whenever we're going to do something coordinated, we know we need to plan that in the in between spots. If we're going to get both of us on the same page and on similar energy levels, because we know that one's going to be amping up and the other one's going to be amping down, we just go, okay, we'll meet in the middle at these 2 points.
Because I shut down around full moons and you get very energized by them. And I get very energized by new moons and you get very shut down by them. So in learning that cycle, it actually helped our married life out a lot because we now know where each other's strengths and weaknesses are. And as we're tracking the lunar cycle, we're aware of, oh, okay, so this one's going to be more active now, and the other one is not going to be as active, and dot dot dot. And it's helped just in general with life beyond just what most people would see as magic. Because magic
Absolutely.
is this everyday
Yes.
experience. It's not just when you're casting a spell or and doing a ceremony or a ritual.
As we say, it's the manipulation of those subtle energies.
Actually,
And
I've gotten even simpler about that lately, and it's any action done with intention
yeah,
is magic.
yes. And to your point, a druid or any person who's just wanting to be in better alignment, just going out into nature. Like a lot of people like to go out into nature and get charged up by it. Learning your personal alignments. It's back to that question, where is your grove? Do you resonate more with the trees and the woods, or do you resonate more with the mountains and woods? Or do you resonate more with bodies of water? So is your grove more of either a pond or a lake, or is it more of a river, or is it ocean? The grove isn't necessarily a set of trees out in the woods, a little clearing. Your grove could be anything. You could resonate more with an urban environment. And if your personal alignment is more of an urban environment, your grove might be a certain city block or some kind of city structure, park or whatever. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a park.
I know that probably sounds like heresy to a lot of people, but one of the biggest problems that we have in our mystical, spiritual, and magical lives is putting this hard edge between anything a human does and nature.
Mhm.
Everything a human does is nature. We are part of nature. We are not separate from. That's a weird concept that came in. We can trace it back, but it really gets invested into human nature with the humanist movements during the Enlightenment that really try to elevate humans above the animals, and then particularly certain kinds of humans above others that are deemed animals as it transitioned into full blown white supremacy. And you have to be very careful about this idea that we are opposed to we are separate from or opposed to nature. We are a part of nature. Now, that doesn't mean that every city street is good. That doesn't mean that every building should be there and that we should pave paradise and put up a parking lot. That's not the same thing. We need to learn to be better stewards of nature and better participants with it. This goes back to what we were talking about in our animism episode, and just in this entire project of learning to align ourselves better with nature so that we're not building towns that are basically giant soup bowls waiting for rain to fill them up. I'm thinking of a specific Texas town when I say that. We have to be much more mindful about how we are interacting with nature, but that starts with us seeing ourselves as part of nature. I actually resonate much stronger with natural bodies of water and city environments than I do with a lot of forested areas. Deserts are my home. I loved it when I lived out in the desert in Texas. I love visiting deserts. Like that's my idea of a happy, really nice place to go visit and be because that's where I connect. I also connect very strongly at rivers, lakes. I don't have a connection to the ocean though. It's not all natural bodies of water for me. And that's something you need to learn for yourself. How do you align with these things? Where are your connections? Where are your connecting points? And we're going to talk about that a lot deeper on tomorrow's episode, where we're going to be talking about correspondences, because that's a separate but very important part of this. Learning how to organize yourself. There are certain rooms of the house that I have learned I can do things in this part of the house that I can't do in others. And I'm not just talking about the normal things. We used to have my office in a certain part of the house. And the entire time my office was there, because it made sense for the office to be there, I never got work done in there. I would go back there to get stuff done. And then I would come back out to the living room and actually get my work done, or I would work out of the kitchen. I never really worked in the office when my office was in a particular room of the house. There are a lot of reasons for that. I could go through all of the alignments and correspondences and explain the whole feng shui of it all. But there are reasons why that particular corner of the house, it was the one that got the most, it's the room in the house that gets the most sun. I do not behave well with sunlight. It's the room of the house that gets the most heat from the outside. I do not react well to heat. All of those things, learning those about myself. Now, if I need to work and I need to work well, I pick a dark. Oh, I really sound like I'm a troll living under a bridge every time I describe myself. But I need kind of a darker space. I need a space that doesn't get as much natural light in it. I need that kind of almost monastic, like I need to go into my cell and get my work done kind of space. I need that partially for the silence because the windows let too much sound in, but I also need it for other reasons as well. These are the kinds of things that you will learn while you're doing this kind of journaling, because it's those kinds of correspondences that are going to help you not only connect and align better to nature and how nature unfolds around you, but they're going to help you to actually achieve your goals, aims, and ambitions. The other alignments that you should be looking for, time of day is very important, especially when you're starting on this work. Try to capture your state when you get up, sometime during the day, sometimes in the afternoon, and before you go to bed, because you'll start noticing these things. Like most of my energy starts actually kicking in. I get two waves. And depending on when I set my sleep time, when I can catch them. My first wave is actually between 5 a.m. and about noon. If I can get up early enough, I can hit this wave and be super productive. I wrote several of my books during this window of time. And it was either because I was in a situation in my life where I had to get up early, or when I had adjusted my sleep schedule so that I was basically staying up at night and sleeping during the day. Because I also, my second window of energy starts kicking in at around 7 p.m. in the evening and runs till about 4 a.m. And then I get a second wind that hits, and that's the 5 a.m. window. And so I know that I need to get to sleep before that later window hits, or try not to amp myself up too high, or I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. I'm just not going to be able to fall asleep because I am very much a night owl. And so learning those particular patterns has been really helpful. So I can sit back and go, well, am I going to try to set my day up early? Am I going to try to set my day up later? Am I going to just sleep during the day and have that entire time to work? These have all been options that I've tried over the years. Honestly, the best one was when I tried to do the divided sleep, the bicameral sleep. That tended
Yeah.
to actually work best for me. And I don't force it anymore. I used to set an alarm for it and actually make myself get up. But now it's just, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Just kind of letting my natural rhythms take up. And sometimes I do get up in the middle of the night and have a lot of thoughts and capture a lot of them, and just go back to sleep and then get up and feel rested and ready to take on the rest of my day.
That's another practical personal alignment that I think some people don't take into consideration is even how does your system work regarding alarms? Does your alignment require that you have a very loose relationship with alarms? Because, like in Charlie's case, setting rigid alarms triggers all kinds of other stuff. It's generally very problematic in
Mhm.
the end run. And we were able to learn that alignment. Whereas for myself, rigid alarms can actually be a very good thing to an extent. There's a certain point where I need to also remember to let go because I can become hyper focused on the alarms themselves and allow them to rule everything. But as long as I don't go to that extreme of hyper focus, for me, alarms and sticking to those alarms tends to work a lot better. So I have a set time that I try to wind myself down and go to bed around, although I'm a little more loose about that, and I'm rigid with the set time that I get up at, and I try to keep it the same as much as possible because my body will just correct. Enough times of going to bed late, I will be tired enough and just go to bed early to make up for
I
it.
I will
Okay.
wake up at the same time every day. I wake up at 10 a.m. every morning. Now, sometimes I can coax myself back to sleep and let myself sleep in, but I do wake up at between 9:30 and 10 every day. I know this about myself. I have lived in this body long enough that I'm going to wake up. Now, I can try to calm myself down and get myself back to sleep and sleep longer if I need to rest, recuperate, or what have you. But I know this. I know this for a fact about myself. This is what we're looking for. This is one of those places where I don't think people understand the overlap in the Venn diagram between learning to practice magic and a lot of productivity culture. There's a lot of overlap in this, except for if you're doing a good, proper magical practice, you're learning how to use your natural function features and not trying to force a more rigid schedule over yourself. But there is a lot of overlap there. And as a result, we need to be careful not to bring in a lot of that toxic productivity into our work. Now, when I say that new moons, I'm generally full of energy and wanting to do things. If I have a cold or if I'm sick and there's a new moon, I need to cut myself some slack. If there is weather out and my joint pain and my chronic pain is acting up, yeah, they're probably going to balance each other out. It's going to be kind of a neutral time period for me, and not trying to force myself to do more than I can actually do just because, well, it's new moon. I should be able to.
There is another one of those personal alignments because, like you said, some people have previous injuries, joint pains, and whatnot. That is a personal alignment. It's a cycle you're connected to. And it's important to be mindful of that and have that in consideration as well. There's no point in pushing yourself. As you said, if you've got weather going through that's going to increase the joint pain, there's no point in planning a bunch of physical activity. Like I'm going to do a whole bunch of house cleaning and chores right as
Or
a
even
frost
mental
going through.
activity, because it can drain
Yeah.
just my energy levels. I keep very up on the weather because I know how my body acts between like it's going to be foggy and drizzly outside, as opposed to like when we're expecting a snowstorm or a thunderstorm or something like that, exactly how my body and energy levels are going to interact with that. And again, those are the alignments you're looking for in your own life. And it really can get into a lot of just particular minutia. There may be days that just matter to you. And they're the easy ones to think about: your birthday and anniversary, the birthday of somebody close to you, the day somebody died. There are some kind of natural ones like that that I think a lot of us have in our lives. But there are also just like strange ones that come up. Like the 20th of May is very important to me, not just because a bunch of my friends and I so the 20th of May is very important to me because my friends and I, for the longest time, always celebrated Eliza Doolittle Day because we were fans of the musical My Fair Lady. And this idea of just like standing up and just, there's so much about that story that just really resonated with us. And we also liked wearing really insane hats. That was a big part of our celebration of Eliza Doolittle Day. Just that rebellion of, no, I'm going to be myself and I'm going to take down the guy who's trying to conform me to his image of perfection. Even though I don't really get to see those friends anymore, and a lot of them have already passed, I still, every year around that date, find myself feeling a bit more rebellious, wanting to do something much more extravagant, wanting to do an art project because that was the time that a lot of us were doing art projects together so that we'd have them to show for each other on Eliza Doolittle Day. And so it's a silly thing that my friends and I did that have made the 20th of May into this important holiday for me. And it's not one I talk about a lot because a lot of other people don't have resonances with it, right? But it's something that I know is going to be happening inside of me. So I need to make sure that I have myself set up so that if I feel like painting or drawing or something, I have those around. Start thinking about whether or not I want to crochet myself a silly hat or some silly headwear just to have for that day, right? These are thoughts that go through my mind because I know how I align to these seasons. These are going to change throughout your life. But before we go, I really want to stress that to you. These are things that are going to change throughout your life. I have not always had chronic pain. I hurt my knees when I was 16. And the first thing my doctor told me was, congratulations, you now have arthritis. Those wonderful words every 16-year-old wants to hear. It has been a process of them causing more and more pain. I then hurt my back when I was 21, which of course adds a whole new plethora of things. And so my attenuation, my interconnectedness with the elements of the seasons has changed over time. I didn't used to have crippling back pain when a thunderstorm moved through. I used to love thunderstorms. I used to go out and play in the rain and run and dance and just be out there in all the energy and the wind and everything because I was that kind of a kid. And after I hurt my back, oh, those fronts start coming through and my back starts hurting and I don't have that relationship anymore. And this is where learning to be aligned to the seasons is powerful. I could mourn, and a lot of people do this. They mourn that lost energy they had in their youth. They mourn that ease at which they used to navigate the world in their youth. And I know that I have just transitioned to another phase of my life, and those meanings have changed now. And it keeps you from growing those bitterness, the senses of bitterness and resentment. So I hope that this has meant something to you. I hope that this is a practice that you do take up and really start thinking about all the different things, because there's so many things that we haven't talked about, from more traditional holidays that you may connect with, such as Halloween or Easter or Christmas. I know people that really connect to Arbor Day for reasons beyond my understanding. There are all kinds of alignments that you might have that you really need to start figuring out and using to your advantage. And if you have some interesting ones, Brian and I have shared quite a few of ours. If you have any that you'd like to share, if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. You can, if you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they do not let us know. So we won't be able to respond to you, but leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to creationpaths.com and you can leave a message there and we will see it and be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am see Dorset on both. Or you can support us on Cash App with hashtag Creations Paths. Thank you to everybody who does that. We mean the world to us. You help us keep a roof over our head, food on our table, and the power on. If you don't have any money right now, or if you're not sure that we're the kind of people you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's perfectly all right. If anything that we've done has helped you out, please share it with others. That helps us out more than you know. And as we're heading out today, I have to do it. It's just who I am. Sweet Bridget, who discovered throughout her life the things that she was aligned with. She didn't take for granted that she was the goddess of poetry and healing, of the well and the fire. But when she saw the forge, knew that she too wanted to swing the hammer and make a sword. Bless us, Holy Bridget, and help us to see our place in this world and to align ourselves with the energies that will give us meaning and strength. Amen.